Hi, I'm Brad Warren, and this is Beyond the Event, a youth ministry podcast presented by Christ in Youth, where we help you maintain momentum between the mountaintops. Today is a continuation of a conversation that we started a couple weeks ago about how to scale for growth. A lot of churches out there are growing, and that's really exciting and very encouraging to me and to all my brothers and sisters here at Christ in Youth. And so we just wanted to have a few conversations about how to grow. Not like how to grow, but the infrastructure that you have to put in place around that growth in order to make sure that that you're able to take care of all of the people that God has entrusted to your care. Joining me today, my co-host, the beautiful Korey Klein.
Thank you, Brad.
Korey, ask me about my coffee mug.
Yeah. Hey, Brad, I noticed you have a really cool coffee mug. I can't say words. What am I looking at? What is this?
So this is a beautiful coffee mug. Those who are watching on YouTube,
they see it.
They can see it. Michael got me this.
Oh,
isn't that nice? Michael and I are both from the great Commonwealth of Kentucky.
Where's that?
And it's in the United States of America. It borders Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio.
Okay.
And West Virginia. Cool. Of course, Hatfields and McCoys. How could I forget?
Okay.
So anyway, we're both from Kentucky. Michael went and hiked at Red River Gorge, which is the most beautiful state park in the country.
Is it really, Michael?
It is very, very beautiful.
Okay.
Yes.
It's
most beautiful?
Extraordinary.
I haven't been to all the state parks.
Okay.
So
great answer.
So
Great
anyway,
answer.
I guess Kentucky is celebrating 100 years of their state parks.
Yeah.
So
let's give it up for
Michael
Kentucky.
got me this great mug, which was a very thoughtful and sweet gift.
That's really nice of you, Michael.
Yeah, I really did. My sister can vouch. Not that we're going to take the time to ask, but
let's pull her in right now.
I saw that mug and I said, "Oh, Brad would like that."
You were right.
So
thank you,
awesome.
Michael.
You're welcome.
I love it.
Yeah. Anyway, this episode is releasing the day before Election Day. Who are you voting for?
Well, on that note,
just kidding. Elections
funny.
are wild,
Yeah.
man. They're so crazy. We're going to talk about
Jesus is on the
things than that.
throne.
I
Jesus
know.
is on the
I was
throne.
like, we got better stuff to talk about.
Come on now.
Better stuff to talk about. Like Superstart.
Yes.
You're the director of Superstart.
I am. Yes.
And I love Superstart.
You're very good at your job when you come to Superstarts, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
Am I?
So Brad gets to direct a few Superstarts every year. And
Well, it used to be a few.
two.
This
Now
coming
it's
year,
two.
it's a couple.
It's two.
I got demoted.
No, you didn't get
don't know how
demoted.
I went from 3 to 2.
It's true.
You're telling me that I do a good job, but like what I'm picking up, what I'm receiving from you,
Yes.
is last year you got to do 3. This year you get to do 2.
Yeah. I want to make sure that those two are really, really good, and you will bring that to the two.
So it's a capacity thing. It's
That's
that
all
I
it is.
couldn't do 3 really well.
Yeah.
So
Well, I know you
can
got this
only do
podcast
2.
too.
Yeah,
You got
okay.
the podcast,
All right,
so I didn't want to interfere with that.
I get it. It is one of the pleasures of my life to direct Superstart. I always get to go back to the Commonwealth of Kentucky, to my home state, and actually the guy that we're talking to today always comes to that event, a Superstart in Kentucky. His name is Tom Hahn. He is the everything pastor at Restoration Christian Church in French Lick, Indiana. And so be sure to hang around because we're going to talk to Tom. And Tom is really a truly wonderful guy. And I really cherish every opportunity that I get to talk with him. Every year at Superstart, there's always like one session that he skips like 30 minutes of so that he can stand in the lobby and talk to me.
Gotcha.
And it's one of my favorite times of every year.
He skips session?
Just like 30 minutes.
Okay. That's okay.
It's not that he like intentionally skips. It's that he is a super personable guy.
For sure.
And so we just get to talking and it's like, once that train is moving, it ain't stopping.
I love it.
So
yeah,
this could be a 3-hour podcast. I don't know.
We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens.
Yes.
Anyway, Korey, what are you excited about for Superstart in 2025?
First off, that's crazy that's a year, 2025. a few things, but the number one thing I'm excited about, for those who don't know, this will be 20 years of Superstart when we hit tour in 2025. 20 years of God using this preteen ministry, this conference, to further the kingdom of God. So 20 years, 2005 to 2025. So we're just going to get to celebrate in different ways throughout next year, which I'm excited about. I'm also really excited about our theme, which it's out there. You could check it out on CIY website if you have not seen it yet. But we're looking at Proverbs 4:23 about guarding your heart above all else, for it determines your path. And basically what we're going to be talking about is this word of influence, and the things in your life, they shape you whether you know it or not. So we get to talk with 10, 11, 12-year-olds about, hey, the things that you take in your life, good and bad, they shape you. But also on the other side, you're shaping others. So what our team, from Rob to others on content, is creating and writing right now, for your students to just fully know who Jesus is and how he is shaping their hearts. It's just, I believe, going to be one of the most powerful years of Superstart. And so I'm looking forward to that too.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I love it. Actually, today is our staff cleaning day, which is fun.
I smell terrible right now.
I smell like Clorox wipes. But we clean everything head to toe, little dusting of the whole property and everything that we own.
Yeah.
And I was in a Sprinter. I was on van duty. I was cleaning out all the vans. And I was in one of the not Sprinters, the people movers.
Yeah.
And the only time I'm ever in those things is when I go to Superstart. And I was in one cleaning it out, and I was like, man, I cannot wait to load this thing up and drive it all the way to Louisville, Kentucky, and have Superstart.
You'll be with a great crew as well.
Will I?
Patrick Snow will be with you.
I love Patrick. Yeah. He's the best.
So you're just going to have a great time.
Yeah.
A lot of board games, probably.
Yes,
card
probably
games.
A lot of board games.
Yeah. It's going to be good.
Yeah. It'll be a good time. Michael, are you going to that one?
I don't know yet.
You better. The tradition is that we go, Michael always production manages Superstart Kentucky, or typically.
Yeah, typically. I've done it twice.
Yeah.
I'll most likely be there, but we just don't know.
Yes. And Michael's mom, Margie, cooks us all a dinner.
It's amazing. What does she cook?
Chili.
Ooh. Chili spaghetti.
Cincinnati style chili. Okay. So, but it's not the same as like Skyline.
Yeah, I was gonna say better than Skyline for sure, right?
It's more soupy than like Skyline would be, because Skyline comes in like plates.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Majority of the time.
Yeah. No, we do bowls.
Okay.
But it's
chili
still like
over
chili spaghetti.
Yep. Yeah, and cheese, and then obviously that's a very controversial dish. Some people don't like it.
Yeah.
So Margie also typically has another option as well.
Yeah.
So
very smart.
Well, the noodles are always like separate.
Yeah.
Okay.
But she made like a creamy potato soup last time too. That was pretty baller.
Yeah.
It was so good. I mean, she raised 12 children, so I would assume she could cook a very, very good meal, and she can.
Yeah.
So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
By the way, if anyone doesn't know, that's not an exaggeration.
Yeah.
It's not.
Michael has 11 siblings.
Yeah.
So
where are you at in the order of siblings?
Number 5.
You're number 5.
Number 5.
I'm number 5, but I'm the youngest. So
You're number 5, but then they stopped.
Yeah, then they stopped.
Yeah, I have
perfection.
I only have one brother, and it's like insane for me to think of. Like I literally can't even wrap my head around even being part of a family where there are 5 siblings, much less.
There's 12.
12. Just a wild time.
Are you the oldest or youngest?
I'm older.
Okay.
Yeah. I have one younger brother.
Okay.
So, yep.
Siblings.
Different lives, you know what I mean?
Way different.
Yeah. We've got, this is fun. We've got like oldest child energy, middle child energy, and youngest child energy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which you definitely bring.
Do I?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You're totally a youngest child.
You just know it.
Yeah. You just don't like care what anybody thinks about you.
That's true.
You know?
That's true.
I feel like that's a youngest child thing.
Yeah, I think so.
Anyway. All right, that's enough of that. It's time. Do we have mailbag? Do we have mailbag questions?
I'll be honest, we're running a little bit low.
Okay. There is actually a link in our show notes now where you can text us mailbag questions.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's really cool.
I know. So
Technology.
do that right now, unless you're driving.
now.
But even if you're at a red light, go ahead and text. We have amazing people on this podcast all the time, like Korey Klein, and want to answer your questions. So you can text us those questions. You can email, you can do whatever, just get them to us. So we're running a little low, but we do have a mailbag question for sweet Korey.
Oh, we do? Okay.
I guess.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Yeah. The way you said that made it sound like you had a question in mind, but
no, I don't write into that. I don't do questions.
This is the time where Brad doesn't have to talk. So
yeah. Okay, we have a question. I really, really like this question.
Oh, I'm so
and I
excited.
think that it might be a little bit challenging.
Oh.
A question from our dear friend Haley Fouts.
Oh.
Who has
love
been an event
Haley.
staff
Oh
a
my
couple
gosh,
years.
I
She's
love her
she's
so
one of our
much.
backstage managers for Superstar.
And one of our backstage managers for Superstar.
When
Love
she
it.
gets back from a long-term mission in Hawaii.
Hawaii.
Yeah. Real
So-
difficult place.
Yeah. I'm so sorry that God called you to Hawaii, Haley.
Can't wait to hear about all the ways that Haley learned to be challenged by her discomfort. how the Lord strengthened her to hang out on the beach and in the jungle.
man.
And eat poke bowls.
And eat poke bowls. Anyway, Haley's asking this question. What does personal quiet time look like at an event?
Like
for
for
staff?
for staff?
Yeah.
No.
I said it would be challenging.
When I close my eyes on Friday night and I go to bed. No, but seriously, I would say if I'm looking at a weekend of Superstar, because for me that's 10 years of my life. There's these moments in the afternoon on a Friday when I used to act where I would really try to find 30 minutes to an hour. I mean, you guys know there is some downtime on those Fridays to just, whether that's going backstage, going outside around the church building, whatever it is. And there's been times where I've read a book or I've literally put in my AirPods and listened to some music to just center my mind and like on what God is going to do. So there are moments, not a whole lot, but on a weekend of Superstar to just center your mind and heart on Christ. But also, honestly, just backstage, even right before, like during the sessions, I'm just waiting. And it sounds weird, but waiting in the darkness before going out there. And instead of being with everyone in the green room or whatnot, just waiting and just praying and thinking about what God is going to do in that next moment before going out on stage, or as a director, that next moment before talking with adult leader or encountering and talking to a student. That's it. That's what it is for me. Brad, what about you? Do you find moments at events?
I'm trying to think of how honest I want to be in this very public forum about this. Because this is, you know what? I'm just going for it.
Be honest.
Full send.
That's
Here
what
we
this
go.
is. This is beyond the events.
Be honest.
Be honest.
Be honest. Yeah. I do not even try to get personal quiet time when I'm at an event. And events are also like thin spaces for me where I feel closer to God than probably anywhere else.
For sure.
And I think it is because I am surrounded by like a community of believers all the time. And I think it's just like, okay, that for that season, that's how I'm filled, is through that community. And then you get home and there's plenty of time to like get back into a rhythm and create some space where I can be just me and God. But I'm going to be honest. I think faith is something that is meant to be communal, and I try to be in the Word every single day. I definitely pray all the time. But like having a personal quiet time every single day is not something that is a priority for me.
That's great.
Like where I'm just by myself and quiet.
Michael?
Definitely occasionally,
What about
but
you?
not every day.
I think that's a real thing. I think thinking of events as thin spaces is a pretty great way to put it.
Yeah.
Which I would say kind of contrasts like a challenge that I had when I was a student at Ozark Christian College, where I was coasting a lot on like Bible classes and being in the Word because I was in the classroom.
Yeah.
And then when I graduated, I was like not having regular times like reading scripture or anything like that. And that was, not super awesome. But I think at an event, it is different because it's I don't even know how to try and frame up how it is different, but there's so much going on that allows us to see so clearly and so closely, I think, the way that the Lord is working. I think thinking of it as a thin space is a great way to frame that up, and why it's like, not like, well, Brad, you should work harder.
Right.
Having quiet time.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. I'm just not really into making myself feel guilty.
Yeah.
Over that.
Yeah. And I don't think anybody should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't either.
Everyone's different.
But I mean,
everyone
everyone is different.
Yeah.
And there are people that like really strongly prioritize, like, I need 30 minutes alone with just me and God every day. And that is not an expression that my faith and my relationship with God has really ever taken in my life.
Yeah.
People might think,
because no matter what,
people might think I'm a heathen.
the
for
way
saying that.
you meet and encounter God is in that way, which is beautiful.
I don't know. I mean, it's it's like,
I mean, I do.
yeah.
You know?
No, we all do. Yes.
Yeah.
But like there's a group of guys that come over to my house every other Friday morning. Michael's in that group of people.
Cool.
And like, that's when I feel close to God.
Yeah,
is
that's
when we're
awesome.
sitting around and like talking about, hey, what are the really good things that God is doing in your life? And how do you need to be encouraged?
Yeah.
And like that community, and that it is a biblical community, it is a scripturally focused and centered community, is like that for me. I don't know.
Yeah.
If that makes sense or not.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, I would say I never really have consistent rhythms at events. I always try to like have something. There are some events where it's like super consistent. It might be like right before I go to bed, which is typically the easiest time to be able to do it. I'm not a morning person, so I don't like having to wake up any earlier than I have to.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like I'll try, like I'll do it before I actually leave, the room or the dorm or, wherever. This past summer, something that I did as often as I could, it was not always feasible, but this was something I actually really, really enjoyed doing. Of course we were going through Psalm 23 and every opportunity that I had, I would try at least once during whatever week. I would try and go by myself somewhere like in nature that was like near the event to read Psalm 23 and, maybe read other scripture and spend time like journaling and in prayer. So like I did it, 1 week in California where I went all the way out, I think to Laguna Beach.
Oh, wow.
And just found like a trail that's like a little bit like down from where like Laguna Beach proper is, and just sat on a bench that overlooked the shoreline. It was pretty cool.
That's really cool.
And then one time in Pennsylvania, just found this like, I had to walk through somebody's backyard to get here. So, maybe it was fine. But like,
I thought you were going to
cliff.
say maybe it was trespassing. I was like, it definitely was trespassing.
Nah, it was fine. He was like, it's good.
But like I found, there was this like overlook in the woods that just like was sitting on top of like a valley that I was able to sit and read Psalm 23 there. And yeah, it was just it was something that was always so encouraging and refreshing, and getting to read scripture, and especially scripture that's intended to be so restful in a place that also was restful.
Yeah.
It was just it was a unique experience. I don't get to do it all the time. I want to try and do something like that more regularly.
That's really cool.
Unfortunately, Joplin is not like Laguna Beach.
Joplin is not like Laguna Beach or like the Appalachia mountain
but
range.
we have good sunsets. We have good sunsets.
Sometimes.
Every once in a while, we sure do.
Every once in a while, a nice
and
sunset.
you know what? The horizon in Joplin is not much.
Yeah. It's, not much going on.
Oh, it's a place.
Great question,
It's a
Haley.
place. That is a good question.
That was a
Haley.
good, we all kind of agreed but disagreed in all our different ways, and I loved it. So, yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
We're all different.
I'm nervous about people hearing me say all of that, but
I don't
that's okay.
know. You got to be honest.
I know.
Be honest.
I know. Be honest. The event.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, that's our mailbag question for the day. Korey,
Yeah,
thanks for being here.
I'm excited.
You want to talk to Tom?
Let's talk to Tommy.
Let's talk to Tom. Well then, Tom, welcome. So glad that you're here.
Absolutely.
Thanks for hanging out. You're one of my favorite people in the whole world.
You say that to every person who's on here.
I
We
literally
have a lot
don't.
of favorite people.
He does.
You know what I mean?
Have you listened to this podcast before?
It sounds
I've
like
listened
he
to a
has.
few episodes.
I do not say you are one of my favorite people in the whole world to everyone.
Yeah, you do.
Wait,
Yes, you do.
I absolutely do not. But Michael has been here for every episode of the last 3 seasons. Do I say that to everybody who comes on?
We need to
With different words, you say
Oh
that
my
to most
gosh.
everyone.
start like
I was gonna
an
say,
online
so,
poll.
Like last time we had Tyler Lamel, and that interview started with
But like,
Tyler,
okay, hold
bestie.
on. I was the best man in Tyler's wedding.
Okay,
Oh,
sure.
there you go.
Right,
That's
right,
actually
right.
a
All right,
real one.
fair
Yeah,
enough.
it is a
Fair
real
enough.
one.
Just because these happen to be back-to-back episodes, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not going to defend
Hey,
myself.
listen,
You're good.
I appreciate the significance of that statement. It's good to be
Okay.
in that company of people, because I will say this: if you've said it to other people, I'm sure they're really cool people too. So so there you go.
I'll vouch.
Circle it back around.
I only have cool people on this podcast. So
There you go.
there you go.
Tom, you're not wrong though. You're
I
not
didn't
wrong.
even know.
We are not making a statement about people who have not been on the podcast.
No.
Right.
So for my teenage children who don't think I'm cool, this confirms the fact that some
that
people
you are in fact cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tom
There you
is
go.
cool.
I met Tom in Muncie, Indiana, which is a town that I never thought that I would ever go to.
me.
And then I
either.
did. And Muncie, Indiana is not, I mean, it's not great. It's fine. Like it's a good town.
college
um,
town. There's
it's a
some cool
college
things
town.
about college
There
town.
are some cool things, but it's like very ordinary Indiana. Like the joke is that Jerry in Parks and Rec has a vacation home in Muncie, Indiana.
Muncie,
And that's like
Indiana.
meant to
Yeah,
be
for sure.
funny because Muncie is like just whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Why would you have a vacation home in Muncie, Indiana?
Why would you have a vacation home in Muncie, Indiana? But then you moved
I went to a more obscure place
to
than
a
Muncie.
more obscure place
Thank
in
you,
Muncie,
Lord.
Indiana. I
Thank you,
know.
Lord.
So how'd you get from Muncie to French Lick? I don't even know actually if I know this whole story. French Lick, Indiana, home of the great Larry Bird.
Yeah.
Yeah, the hick from French Lick.
There you
So,
go.
which my wife said when I proposed the idea of going to French Lick, Indiana, she said, "I'm not moving to French Lick. What am I going to be, a French liquor? Like, so
Hey, this is a family show.
yeah, no doubt. I guess the to spare you all the agonizing details, the gist was that my wife and I kind of felt the Spirit of God saying that it was time for us to trust Him in a new season. And so in one of the worst possible times to try buy and sell a house, we sold our house during COVID
Yeah. Yeah.
and said, "Lord, our house is sold. Where do you want us to go?" And He said, "French Lick, Indiana."
Amazing. So you sold your house and everything before knowing about French Lick.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
So you moved to
Yeah,
French
and
Lick.
and I had some really good friends in my life. Shout out to Pete Coco. They were confirmed.
No relation to Glenn Coco.
No.
Okay.
But my point is, they were kind of confirming these suspicions, because I was like, hey, because at that time, if I do some math, my kids were 6th grade, 4th grade, and kindergarten, 1st grade, or maybe 5th, 3rd kindergarten, whatever. And my biggest concern with uprooting my family, because we never thought we'd ever leave Muncie, was I don't want this to be a selfish reason for me to move, because I don't want my kids to have to suffer just because dad wants a new gig, or whatever that looks like. And so I had people in my life that we were praying, like, is this the right move? It's not like it's not like overnight we just put our house up for sale. I actually had kind of a vision of, I don't know why. I was in worship one day and I saw a for sale sign in my yard and in my mind, and I didn't know what that meant. I'm like, that's really weird. Never thought I'd sell my house. And it kind of went from there. And in a time span of probably 9 months from that kind of, holy cow, are you for real? Our house was sold. It sold in 2 days because we sold it during that COVID time when like houses started going stupid.
Yeah.
And
interest rates were 2% or whatever.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Then we got into a house on the other side of that.
Right.
So I don't know if this is a financial management seminar, but
in some ways it actually is.
Yeah. So kudos to me for.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, so that's how we ended up in French Lick. And I had met the elders of this church through actually a college website. They were saying that they needed a pastor. And I was like, maybe. And we met, and yeah, so that's how we ended up in French Lick.
And the rest is history. You work on a great team there. Lots of wonderful coworkers who we all know and love. Right?
You caught me in the middle of a staff meeting.
Yeah.
So we're all present.
You and you. Everyone's here. So you work. I want to kind of recap this again. Work at a church by yourself. There is nobody on staff at the church you attend besides you, full-time, part-time, or otherwise. Tom is the employee. And we are having you on a podcast about growth because this is insane. 2 years ago, you brought 20 people to move.
4 years ago, we bought 3. That was our first move event from French Lick.
Right.
Me, my son, and one of our elders' daughters.
Okay. And that's not actually even in our database because you attended with another church.
That's right.
So 4 years ago, you brought 3. 3 years ago, you brought 20 people. Last year, you more than doubled that total and brought 49 people to move. And this year, you were registered to bring 60 people to move from a church that has one full-time staff member, does not have a building, meets in, if I remember correctly, a movie theater.
We used to meet in the movie theater. We meet in high school auditorium now.
Okay. Very good.
Which is really cool. I actually love that.
Yeah. Has that been a good move?
It really has been. Good. You know, I think all the youth pastors and youth workers that watch this show can relate to the fact that one of the struggles that we all have as people, but students specifically have, is being different people in different places. You know, like, hey, I can be this kid in youth group. I can be this kid at home. I can be this kid on the football team. And it's like, as long as they all don't find out, right? Don't want pastor, youth pastor to find out, that this is the way I talk around these set of friends. And I think there's something that is cool about the fact that these students show up and worship at their school.
Yeah.
Sunday.
Yeah.
At least that's the way I look at it. I think it's pretty unique.
For sure.
Yeah, that is cool. How long have you guys been doing that?
That's been a little over a year.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
So as you've grown, the conversation that we want to have is about money, financial planning, seminar, if you will, because budgets are hard, and most people who are in ministry, budgets are kind of a difficult thing for them. And I think budgets are even harder when you're kind of like holding on to God's coattails and just like experiencing the kind of crazy growth that you're experiencing, at least within the youth ministry at your church, and I think at the church overall. So it's like, if you under budget, like if you shoot low, if you aim really, really conservative, then it's possible that you might not be able to do all of the things that you would want to do for all of the students who show up to your ministry. If you over budget, if you kind of get ahead, put the cart before the horse a little bit, then it's possible that you might not end up being able to afford some of the things that you were planning to do, or get yourself in a little bit of a bind. And, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on here is because I think you, like me, are a little bit of a a little bit of a renegade, maybe a little bit like, whatever kind of.
It's safe to say.
Like we're, you're not the kind of guy who's like extremely, you're not going to embed yourself in an Excel sheet on a Monday afternoon, and you're going to kind of like leave a little bit of wiggle room and a little bit of freedom for God to do whatever he's going to do. Has that, have you experienced friction there at all with like elders or other people at your church, or do you feel like they're kind of all on board?
It's kind of interesting. Like one of the, I guess maybe a lot of us were feeling this way during COVID when the world was like blowing up, that there were things going on in the church that weren't working, like Big C Church, like, and so I guess when I came down here, the reason I was attracted to a church without a building is because I wanted to go someplace, and it's not all positive. It's not all net positive to not have a building and not be long established. I mean, obviously there's a lot of benefit to having a very established church community. But one of the reasons that I was drawn to this community that didn't have a church building is because when I talked to the elders, I didn't really feel like they had a lot of like there weren't things that I had to tear down because I wanted to build something new. You know what I mean? It was just like, hey, we're ready for the new thing. And that was, I guess that was what God really kind of laid on my heart when we made the move is like, God, do you want something different?
Yeah.
Like, and I guess at that time and still to some degree, I'm convinced that he does. And so I don't experience a lot of that friction other than when you're dealing with a small community. Sometimes it's difficult for them to think bigger.
Small community in your church or in like the surrounding community?
Yes.
Got it.
Yes.
Both.
Because this is a very rooted community. It's not a transient community whatsoever. When we came in, it was like, hey, who are the new people? Like
it's not like there's a military or something taking people in and out and all that. Like
it's not like oh, it's just another person who decided to move to French Lick because everybody wants to move to French Lick. And so I guess the only friction is like, does our vision match, God's vision as it pertains to size? Or are we limited because we think, oh, well, that's just the way we do things at this church? You know what I mean?
So I don't want to like put words in your mouth by any means. So it sounds like the kind of imagery that popped into my mind is when you came in to Restoration, there weren't a lot of like sacred cows. There wasn't a lot of cultural battle that needed to be fought.
Right.
It was just like kind of a blank slate, and you and the elders are walking in step toward whatever the vision is. So it sounds like maybe the friction then is that the vision, it's harder to catch a larger vision for people who live in a small community and attend a smaller church.
Right. Because and I think this is true in all cases, but we already have in our mind when it comes to any situation, what's possible. And so when you are saying, okay, God, you're sending him here because you want something new, what that means is, God, you want to see something happen that has not happened before in this community. And so therefore it's like, how do you get people to believe that that's possible? And I mean, I think that's the challenge for any pastor of a church or youth pastor, because it's like you come in and you're like, hey, I don't want to just do status quo, like, and whether that looks like growth, whether that looks like community engagement, whether that looks like, missional goals or whatever it is, you have to figure out how to increase people's imagination on what is possible.
For sure.
That's the job of the prophet, right? It's like
right,
to
right,
paint that
exactly.
picture. Yeah,
And so, there are some, and I think every environment has, things that are kind of cultural norms. And so it's like, okay, how do we break out of those and trust God for something bigger?
Yeah. Okay, so as we talk about budgeting and money and the ways that impacts growth and the ways that we respond to growth when it comes to money, I kind of want to start by maybe doing a little bit of a case study kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you're in the middle of a season of growth, which you have been in basically the entire time that you've been at Restoration.
Sure.
What are the money, like what are the pinch points right now? What are the conversations? What are the difficult things when it comes to how you budget alongside the growth of your church? And even like playing into that, what we were talking about with the competing visions a little bit.
I think the biggest thing, and I think initially, and I think first of all, I think as it relates to budgeting for CIY, it's expensive for a family.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Especially when you start having multiple kids wanting to go and all that kind of stuff.
It's not cheap. And so I think, and again, people feel a certain way about an event. You know what I mean? Because people who haven't been there don't understand what really happens in that 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
So when I think about the conversations that happen, initially, I think it was convincing families that in a community that did not have, like, I didn't walk, like, I know a lot of youth pastors walk into a community and it's like, oh, there's this group that meets over here. There's this youth group over here at this church, and there's this youth group, and there's this. Walk into a community where there is no youth group. Okay? So there haven't been kids going to youth camp. There haven't been. And so budgeting as a standpoint for CIY really started with trying to convince families that it was worth it, both time and money, and then convincing volunteers that they should take a week off work to come and be a part of something called CIY with students.
Yeah. So were you asking students to foot the entire bill for going, or were you able to like build, like, how did that all work?
Well, I think, it's hard because, when any youth pastor says, hey, we're going to go to CIY, right? And maybe there are those churches out there that are like, nope, you just go get the kids and we'll pay for it. And I don't think that was the environment that we were in. So it's like, you got to list some sort of price tag. And then I think, as being even remembering my days in Muncie as a youth pastor, it's like, well, you want to let people know that there's financial assistance available, but you don't want to advertise it because you don't want people that don't need to use it when they could pay for that trip themselves.
But you also don't want somebody to not go because they can't afford it.
And so the conversations for us have always been, especially for me, whenever we tell people about CIY, you tell them all the great reasons of why they should go, what it's going to be like. And then you say, oh, and here's what it's cost, but money shouldn't be the reason that you don't go.
Yeah.
And so those conversations were happening, initially. I wouldn't say that there was any friction or pushback from our elder team. I think it was more of the students going, what, do I want to spend a week at church camp? Like, I don't know. That is not something I'm familiar with. I don't have a lot of friends that are telling me about experiences that they had at church camp. And there's a church camp down the road that I went to as a kid. So why don't we just go there? That was really like, really? Do you need to take kids to Lee University? we have a camp near us. And it's like, well, this is different.
Right. Yeah.
This is different. And so initially, I think all those conversations we're having, but now I think our community in particular is seeing the results of how powerful a week-long experience can be. And I don't even think they question it now.
Yeah.
But I do know that last year, because we also, I think I'd have to double check. Orange County is like the third poorest county in Indiana. So we're also not a very affluent community. So, and we also aren't in a habit of paying for a lot of things as a church, if that makes sense. We don't have a mortgage payment. We don't have a huge light bill and huge
payroll
staff costs. And so we're used to not really having to front very many bills, if that makes sense. And so I know last year when I thought, oh my goodness, we're going to go from like 14 students to 48 students. I wonder how many of those students aren't going to be able to afford to pay.
Yeah. Where did that growth, where did that come from? Was that like students coming back telling friends and bringing them, or was it that the church was attracting a lot more families? And they where did all these people come from?
Honestly, for us in our community, it really started with myself and another lady from our church who's pretty influential in our youth community. We started getting involved in FCA. And we saw a huge uptick in FCA numbers. We have graduating classes of around 60 to 70 here at Springs Valley. And we have well over 100 students every week coming to FCA. And so I think a lot of that, and also too, like when we came to French Lick, my kids knew what like a happening youth group looked like.
Sure.
And they didn't see it when they got here, and they were disappointed. Because when we got here, my son was just getting into 6th grade. And that was like, now I can stop being the youth pastor's kid and I can show up to youth group. And then when we got here, it was like, oh, what youth group? Looking around and seeing 3 students. So I think my kids played a pretty influential part in that, because they were champions of CIY already before they even ever went to CIY, because they had been jealously watching all these cool kids in our church that they looked up to get to go to CIY. And so I think they've been a huge part of spreading the word and saying, hey, this is something that's important. And in a small community like ours, it just kind of caught fire. And
so, are a lot of the kids that you're bringing students who don't regularly attend Restoration, or
I would say a lot of them do now.
Okay.
There's like, I don't know. It's so crazy. Like in our little community, there's like 55 churches, but most of them are like,
that's crazy.
12 people.
Right. Yeah.
And most of them have the same last name that show up to church.
Right.
And so biblical literacy is very low in our community with students. And so I think there's a genuineness that they feel from the gospel that in some communities where it's like, well, I've been invited to 95 youth groups and 95 youth events my whole life, and I'm around it all the time. That's not the situation here at all.
Yeah.
And so I think there was a genuineness. And then you know how it is when you go to CIY and you feel Christian community for maybe the first time. It's like, this isn't real.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so I think we have a lot of students feeling that. And then we have a very low control high support model of youth ministry in French Lick. Like, we don't have a youth group that meets every single week. We got a Bible study that meets on Thursday mornings. We rely very heavily on, hey, you should be at FCA because that's your, and it's not our meeting. It's not it's their thing.
Yeah.
And so I think you have a lot of students who are like, man, this is my thing.
Yeah.
Like, this is my time. Like,
Taking some ownership.
Yeah. And so there's been a high level of ownership amongst our students. And I've done less work to create that than when I was spinning my wheels
For sure.
for 12 years, trying to figure out how to go from 18 students to 25 students. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah. So now but I do remember, like, as far as budgeting is concerned, I remember when we made that really big jump 2 years ago. I was like, how many of these students are not going to be able to afford a thing? Because I had student after student tell me, I want to go to CIY. I want to go to CIY. I want to go to CIY. And then it's like, I don't even know who your parents are. Yeah. Do you have, do you live with your parents?
What's
do you
the
live
situation?
With your grandma?
Yeah.
Right. Like, and so, but I think then we had again, and it was kind of that perfect storm because I told you, we don't write a lot of checks for a lot of things as a church community. So when our faithful church body saw all these young people showing up and wanting to worship with hands raised and wanting to be at church and wanting to, in a community where I think most churches are going, well, why do young people not love God anymore? Why don't they want to come to church? We kind of have this opposite problem where we have a lot of mouths to feed and very few people that are going to work, But I think our faithful community saw that, and I didn't have to worry, because you know how it is when you go to high volume CIY events now, that down payment is non-refundable. And I've always told my elders whenever we go, and I'm like, gosh, should I register for 60 for CIY this year? If we have to scale back from that number, the conversation I always have with my elders is, yeah, this deposit's non-refundable. But if we don't get some of this money back, at least we know it's going to an amazing organization that we would support financially anyways. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the way I've sold the non-refundable deposit to our elders.
Sure.
Is let's just look at this. If we don't end up taking 60 people and we take 50 and we don't get that, let's just look at this as a way of financially supporting some brothers and sisters in Christ who are doing some amazing things that we want to get behind anyways.
Well, that's super encouraging for me to hear, obviously. Yeah. So, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, Tom, you mentioned earlier about students taking ownership. And like after the years, you guys have been coming for a few years now from your church. Do you just off the top of your head have stories when you think of students, whether preteen, middle school, high school, of ways maybe that they've been with their friends fundraising? Like we talk about budgets and how you're able to maybe help students who can't go, but are there students in your community who've gone to these events who are like, hey, we're going to make this happen? Like, what are ways they've used their gifts, their talents and abilities that you've seen?
I know that several of our students this year got that card this past year about raising money for 10 students to go to
for
CIY.
10 students to go.
That's awesome.
And you're over in the corner like, yes.
They're like, what? I know off the top of my head, there's one young lady named Maddie that got a t-shirt. I don't even know what it looks like. I should go over to her living room and see it, but she got a t-shirt press. And so she made all the Fields of Faith shirts.
No way.
And she has in her mind that is something that she's going to start doing, of making Christian t-shirts to raise funds for that way. But I will say it's kind of funny because we had Fields of Faith three weeks ago, and we did it in the basketball arena and the house that Bird built. It was awesome, by the way.
There's a statue of him, right?
We had like 5 students leading worship. I was up there just playing guitar. They were leading the singing. It was unbelievable. I mean, it really was. I mean, there was well over 150, 200 students there, like just worshiping. I don't know. It was amazing. But
so cool.
there was like 9 speakers, okay, 9 students that got up. And at one point, my friend who happens to be the football coach that goes to our church, we're standing up top listening to all these testimonies about life change, about addictions that are falling away. Students are up there like literally confessing, like their parents are there and they're saying things. I'm like, whoa, dude, you don't have to be that honest, but they are. They're like just, I'm telling you, like it was crazy.
Yeah.
But the football coach leaned over to me during the event. He goes, every time one of these students mentions CIY, does CIY pay you? Like, and I'm like,
What's the
know.
kickback on this? Yeah.
So just to know, CIY kind of owes me some royalties. No, but it's crazy because again,
Yeah, I just want to be really clear for everyone listening that is $0.
Yeah.
There's no NIL deals.
There's
no
affiliate links.
No affiliate links.
Like that. But I think again, it's like I've got kids that don't even go to church that are like elbowing me at basketball games and going, I want to go to CIY. And I'm like, you don't even know what CIY is. But they want to go.
Yeah.
And so more than just fundraising, I think our students have taken ownership in saying this is their thing now. Like it's no longer my thing. And now I'm kind of wrestling with like, okay, so that other pastor wants to go. And like, again, it's okay. Like, God, this is your thing. This is not our thing. And this is also not a tool that we're trying to use to grow our church. This is just, we know, an awesome tool for our students to feel that call to kingdom work. Because that's
for us, the super important piece is connecting that Heart for Kingdom work back to the mission of the church. So I think CIY considers it a huge win if like local churches grow because of what their students experience at Superstart and Mix and at Move, which is just, but it sounds
well,
really...
and I think too, like, I think probably the most important thing for me in our community is helping people find missional clarity for their own life.
Yeah.
And that's where I say sometimes I feel like I shoot myself in the foot because I'm constantly telling people that they should go out instead of recruiting people to help us out. You know what I mean? And so, and I probably, like we joked around about being a staff of one, but, I could probably do a better job, in that area. But I will say too, it's not slowing down. I mean, we have a 4th grade girl who actually snuck into Superstart last year as a 3rd grader. Breaking the rules.
Let's go.
Okay. Cover your ears, Korey.
No, I'm listening.
She started a nonprofit that she's provided hundreds of people at nursing homes to receive electronic pets.
Let's go. That's amazing.
And electronic birds. Wow. And baby dolls. And because her grandma last year and it started with her grandpa. Her grandpa passed away a little over a year ago, and he was in a nursing home, and she found out that these pets help fight against loneliness and an array of other things. And she's like, we could do this. And they are in like 6 nursing homes. And she's been on the local news in Louisville. And she started this whole thing called Evelyn's Blessings. And that girl evangelizes in her school like crazy. And so that's what we have coming down the pipe. And so
it's amazing.
For me,
is she gonna be at Superstart with you this year?
She will be at Superstart this year.
You need to make sure that I meet her. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Brad will be there.
Yeah,
Brad will be
for sure.
Yeah. That's so cool.
So, I think that for me, and I think it also helps too. Like, I've never been in this season where I have 2 middle school 8th grader and a 10th grader in my own home. And I'm like, if they don't figure out how to make this faith their own before they leave this house, I'm a little worried.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
And so I think I'm in a season of my life where being a single staff person, I can't control everything. Because there's only so many quote unquote programs that we can have that I can juggle.
Right.
And so I feel like I'm constantly telling people like, well, hey, if that's the dream that you see, like, go make it happen. Like, you know, I'll pray for you. And I think our students have just caught that vibe and I don't know, it just kind of took off.
So cool.
And I really wondered, is 60 enough? Like I know I saw that Lee University is almost full, and there's been several days in the last week where I'm like, do I need to go register 10 more people? Maybe I should just do that. Maybe I just need to go do that, because I fear more of telling that student who wants to go that we're out of spots.
Yeah.
Than I do figuring out how to come up with $100.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's kind of, but also as you grow, I feel like that dollar amount that it costs to add a student becomes more and more.
Increases.
So like, are you forking over $100 for every student that goes to Move or Mix or whatever? Is that?
You mean like as a church, or you mean me personally?
Yeah. No.
Out of your own wallet.
Tom. Yeah. Taking money out of that extra pillowcase. And
So we did a Google form here trying to do a little better job, because one of the things I've been horrible at, I mean, October comes quick, by the way. It's really hard to sell family members about a July event in October, by the way. And I know CIY knows this, and I know you don't have any control over it because you have to have numbers. You've got to know. I've always done probably a really poor job of that pre-registration.
yeah.
This year we did a Google form, and on it, instead of, in the past, I think whenever I've done things like this, I've just kind of put that thing out there like, will you be requiring financial assistance? And this time I actually went into greater detail. I said, will you need, I basically broke it up and said, hey, will you need 25% of your fee covered? Will you need 50%? Will you need 75%? Or will you need 100? Because we're actually charging students $500 a piece because, by the way, it's expensive. This is the first time last year we've ever had to get a charter bus.
Yeah. Those things are not cheap.
If anybody knows, like, got the hookup on how that should not be, like it cost us 10 grand just in travel costs to bring kids to Lee University from French Lick and back.
Yeah.
And then we're at the event without transportation. We have a vehicle or two vehicles from sponsors. But that's really expensive. So we're actually charging students $500 a piece to go to CIY this year. But one of the huge blessings, and I know this will be particularly relevant for people in Indiana, and there might be organizations in other states, but there's an organization called the Center for Congregations. And we applied for and received a $25,000 matching grant to educate under the umbrella of congregational education. So like everything we spent the money on had to be in an effort to increasing biblical literacy within our congregation. And so all of our expenses, travel, and all those registrations that we had to help out with as a church fell within that matching grant. So we had a $25,000.
Yeah.
What's that? So we had a $25,000 assistance, and we spent all $25,000 of that money.
Yeah.
And matched $2,750 as a congregation to take our students to CIY.
So does the October registration thing, like, to me, it almost sounds like that would help with budgeting a little bit, because it's like you're getting a pre-registration from all of your students. They're telling you, or their families are telling you, hey, I think we're going to need X amount of assistance. And then you're able to like budget for that for the following calendar year.
It was less. it provided more clarity, which really helped because like right away, and I just had a QR code that I kind of let loose at the school and just had students start, signing up and like telling us who their guardians are and, phone numbers and that kind of thing. And I think within the first week, we had like 52 students that said they were going. And of those 52, I think there were like 6 that needed full financial assistance. And so it was definitely very helpful because in my mind, I was like, oh my gosh, are 25 of these students going to need us to cover
full ride
the cost for CIY? And then I'm really bad
What would happen if they did? What if 25 people were like, we need you to pay for move?
I think we would just take them.
You just pay for it and like
we
run
would.
with it. Yeah.
I mean, and I guess maybe that's the benefit of not being a super established. Like I said, we're not writing checks for a lot.
Yeah.
And the impact that our faith community has seen from CIY has blown people's minds. So I think I have a blank check to write now as it pertains to summer camp at CIY.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to convince anybody anymore.
Would that be like a conversation with your elders? Like, hey, I need however much.
Yeah, I mean, there's one elder in particular.
$10,000 so that these kids
there's
can
one
go to
elder in particular that handles our finances, and so I called him like 2 days before event registration and said, "Hey, I'm about to commit to $90,000. Like, what do you think about that? Like
it's not quite.
It's not that.
Yeah.
No. We registered 90 people at $500 a pop, so $45,000.
And have you registered for Superstar yet?
We have not yet.
No, come on. Hey.
Fortunately, that event doesn't fill up as quickly.
Korey's right here, man.
We got, I'm right here. It's okay. I saw your post. I saw your posts about it. I see you're excited.
Our Facebook page, bro. We just put out the event for Superstar.
I saw that.
I've got some 5th grade teachers. So my wife is an aide in the 5th grade classroom.
Amazing.
And our children's administrator, like the Jennifer Hill, she runs all of our children's programming on Sunday morning. She's crazy. Her daughter's Evelyn.
On a volunteer basis.
Wow.
She is. She's crazy. So we will have a big group at Superstart this year.
I love it. I love it so much. That was going somewhere and I can't really remember where it was going. Yeah, you're not like when you first register for Move and Mix though, you're not on the hook for $500 a person.
No, you're not.
That's what I'm saying.
You're not.
So,
no, you're not. No, you're not.
Yeah.
But
anyway,
I think
so. Like,
but
when
again,
how does that conversation go? Is what I'm trying to ask. Like when you say I'm on the hook for this, is he like sick?
No. It goes well because I think as a faith community, like and I don't know if it's this way in all places, but around here, it's like people are so surprised by students that want to be involved in their faith. Like they're pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's a really, but I'm also not that youth pastor that's constantly saying, hey, we'd like to buy 5 new flat screen TVs for our youth room. So I'm not competing. And I know that's a real deal. Like a youth pastor is budgeting for the whole year and camp is a part of that budget. And so when we already asked for, an upgrade to our youth room, that conversation hits a little differently. For us, I think we're so lean and nimble that it's like, hey, this is something we do, and it's just going to be something we continue to do, and we'll figure it out.
But there's a lesson in that, in like being simple and having the flexibility to then invest in whatever those high priorities are that really, truly kind of drive the mission of the ministry. That's encouraging. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Korey, this man has about 6 full-time jobs.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I think I'm ready to let him go.
That's crazy. Well, I was just thinking,
I was going to say, do you have anything
Well,
else?
I was just thinking, as we're closing this out, man, a pleasure getting to hear from you and get to know your heart. But I talk to a lot of ministers who are children's and youth pastors. But yeah, you talked about 6 hats, Brad. Man, like, just briefly, can you just share like what it's like as we close this out to not only be ministering to children's and youth, but like to adults and like to the whole body? Like, where, of course, that comes from God who's instilled in your heart to do this. But man, what do you love about your job in doing that? I want to hear about that.
So I probably preach 45 weeks out of the year.
Yeah.
Sunday mornings. Sunday, I'm in a golf tournament.
Yeah.
caddy tournament at the Pete Dye that I'm hoping to win, by the way. But I have a high school student, a senior, Graydon McGee. This will be the 3rd time, and he's been a Christian for like 7 months. This will be the 3rd time he's filled the pulpit for me.
Wow.
That's really cool.
And so last night he was sitting in my office and we're just like jiving over, the sermon this Sunday is about, man, if God is powerful, if God is all powerful, why wouldn't we ask him for what we need? And we were just like getting excited. And it's so crazy because, again, this is a very young individual, a 17-year-old boy. And I look at him and I'm like, dude, are you ready for this? He's like, dude, I'm ready. I'm excited. And it's like working with adults sometimes. It's like, man, you got to like really like, hey, you can do this. You can do it. And
you have to baby them.
What's that?
You have to baby them.
Right. For sure. Yeah. And so that's where I think I get excited thinking, okay, something we're doing is working. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And also God is providing like in a very unconventional way, he's providing support around you. Where like some youth pastors have a staff around them to support them.
Right.
Your support is coming from all these people in your faith community, including a 17-year-old boy.
I was going to say, not just youth leaders, but the youth themselves.
Right,
yeah. No, it is awesome. It is awesome.
So, I love that, man.
So.
Yeah. Well, Tom, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for taking some time to hang out with us. And
absolutely.
I just love your heart, man. I love it so much. It's really encouraging always for me to hear from you and just how different you're doing church than so many places around the country. And you're rolling your eyes at me a little bit, but I mean,
I still haven't figured it out. I don't know if it's good.
It doesn't matter.
Never will. Never will.
You put one foot in front of the other, and it's like only got to be faithful to whatever the next thing God calls you to is. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, I don't know. So
well, and I think too, I think it's really important to be faithful. Like one of the commitments that I've made in my mind is to be faithful to a place and a group of people. And in a small community like ours, that is so important because I don't know how many times I heard in the first few years that we were here, like, well, you won't be here forever. And I'm like, dude, I'm not planning on going anywhere. I'm here, but it just takes a while. And just invest. I by the way, CIY, you guys are incredible. Like you really are. And I'm so pumped to go back to Lee University this summer.
With Aaron Pelsu.
So pumped to go to yeah, dude. 1,600 people in a 1,500 room, what? Yeah, that's pretty. And Pelsu's
gross.
Brad's excited to go back to Lee as well.
I am. I love going to Lee. We don't go to the same
maybe
week,
there's some food upgrades on the horizon at Lee University is what I
wouldn't count on it.
All right, whatever.
Here's the mentality that I've learned to adopt. If I could pick anything about a week of move to be your least favorite thing about the week, I'm picking food every time. I'm picking food every time.
Yeah.
Because if food trumps the worship or the preaching or the thing, I'm like, you know what? If everyone's least favorite thing is the food, that's great by my estimation. Now I have to eat that food for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And that is certainly a bummer for me. So,
Yeah.
you know.
It didn't help the $90 Taco Bell bill that I got the first time we went. I'll just tell you that much.
Bro, you
Just
gotta
tell you
go.
that much. That wasn't in the church budget.
Yeah. You got to go to Cookout. It's way cheaper.
Oh,
Yeah,
here we go
true.
again.
So there you go. Yeah. All right, bro. Well,
Hey, thanks,
love you.
guys. Appreciate you.
Man, it was
Take
great.
care.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Yeah. See ya.
All right. Korey,
Yeah.
Tom is one of the most authentic people that I know, and I just love that conversation so much.
It was great. I love the different stories he brought up, especially of people in the youth group where he talked about students who are fundraising, but also just hearing about the student who's also preaching like 3 times already. It's
Here's
awesome.
the thing is Tom has no like loyalty to tradition.
Yeah.
No, I don't mean that in a bad way.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
in a really, really pure way, he's just like, yeah, we're going to do the things that God wants us to do.
And it sounds really cool too that it's not just him, but hearing the eldership and in the community of that church, like, yeah, like we see what God is doing through the church, and we're gonna let that growth happen with our youth and with our, and of course you see probably adult leaders also getting that because they see what God is doing.
100%.
Yeah.
And it's like when you don't have a mortgage and you don't have a huge
my
staff
gosh.
bill.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, we want to spend money on this. And the eldership says, yeah, that's super in line with our mission. So you can spend money on that. That's really cool.
It's really cool.
It's been a great conversation, Korey. I'm going to have you, if you would, close us out by praying our blessing over our listeners.
I would love to. May God show you grace and bless you. May he make his face shine on you. May you experience the love of Christ through whom God gives you fullness of life. May you be strengthened by his power, and may Christ himself make his home in your heart, that you would be full of his love and grace, and that those you serve would see Jesus in you.
Today's episode was produced by Michael Hester, Lauren Bryan, and me. Thanks so much to Korey for being here, and thank you also to Tom, 2 people who I just love a lot, and I'm glad we got to have this conversation today. We're going to be back in a couple weeks to kind of wrap this series up on how to scale for growth. We're going to be talking to another really good friend of mine who I promise I'm not going to say is my favorite person of all time. I will not be saying that, even though
You'll just say it in a different way. You'll say it in a different way.
I might use different words and also say it in a different way. We'll see how it goes. But either way, it's going to be a fun conversation. So be sure to tune back in for that one. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also subscribe on YouTube. If you want to watch, go ahead and smash that subscribe button. Love you guys. See you next time.
Peace.